then it says,
Sorry,
then
I
it
forgot to
says-
record.
yeah, then it says unscrew and remove everything, etc., and remove enough of the shims to remove what they call the free play. Remove the free play. My question, I'll just hit got it here, get that out of the screen there. My question is quite simple. What other cars have got this great, wonderful cone of silence and a bunch of shims? And is this an intricate part of the whole of the bearing and race assembly? Or did somebody after 1966, 67 say, Dave, they didn't, Triumph didn't do it, this didn't do it, that didn't do it, don't worry about it. Because bottom line is when you put the bearing against the race and against the back, of course, and then you have the front bearing into the race and the washer and the nut, and then you crank it down to whatever pounds and you spin it and you make sure that things are, you know, not loose, but not tight. I mean, it's got to be whatever. So the bottom line is, does anybody run with or without these, or do they run them always and make sure that you have, quote, no end play? So why do you need it? That's the question.
So Dave, before we get started, I just want to say in 5 years of doing these Tectum calls, you were the first person that's ever done an online demonstration like that. So I commend you for doing that, Dave. That was great.
You should see it. You should see when we're demonstrating how to drink draft beer.
Okay. So any of our experts on the call want to give Dave some recommendation on his free play and not his foreplay?
Dave, this is Bob. I missed a little bit when you were running through the sequence that you put it all together. But I thought you were putting the shims outside the bearing, between the bearing and the washer, and then tightening down on them. And did I miss something there?
Yes, sir. What it said, you tighten everything down, then you remove the nut, remove the washer, remove the outer bearing, and then carefully put the shims in against the
Cone.
cone of silence.
Okay. Yep. All right. So what's happening here is, and I believe this is correct, the stub axle on those early Healeys right through the production was pretty weak. So that cone and making a sandwich of everything adds strength to the stub axle, so it can't go anywhere. So the end play that they're talking about, if you have too many shims in there, the wheel will wiggle.
Yep.
If you take the shims out, you close everything up a little bit tighter, but you don't want to get them too tight. So it's a trial and error kind of a thing. The only thing I would differ with the book is when I'm doing them, I clean everything up with no grease and put it all together. So I get no free play, no wiggle of the wheel, yet it will spin nicely. Then take it apart and pack your bearings. But I believe that it's done that way because the stub axle itself is a little bit weak. So by making a sandwich of everything that holds everything very tight, and that's the reason for the shims, you can buy the shims in 2000s, 3000s, and 5000s and stack them up until you get everything really tight, no play, yet the wheel spins nicely.
I understand
And
what you're
we
saying.
always put the shims and the bearings in there like that. We
I can add a
always
little
do.
more. I can add a little more to that, Dave. I've been around these a long time, and back in the early 90s, I had quite a collection of stub axles for Austin-Healeys. We used to redo kingpin bushes, so we used to collect them up. And we got a crack testing kit as a sample from one of our suppliers. And we thought we'd crack test all these stub axles that we have. And we were surprised to find that over half of them had cracks on the bottom side of the stub axle where it meets the kingpin carrier. And we surmised that these were cracking because a large percentage of these cars were put together with the spacer deleted completely. And
Right on.
as Bob says, they're not a very robust stub axle. And in heavy driving, that stub axle tends to flex and eventually it cracks. So what the spacer does, it effectively makes it a larger base to what they term a pillar. A pillar is, you know, something stands vertically, and the thicker it is, the harder it is to push over. And so by increasing the base area, by putting that, using the inner of the inner bearing and the inner of the outer bearing and the spacer and the shims, you're actually ending up with effectively a much thicker pillar.
I understand. It makes perfect sense. It took me a while to fully understand by taking it apart a couple of times and putting it together and going, what do they really mean here? And then I realized that when they say no end play, they're really meaning that it's a solid from the inside. Well, bottom line is from the one bearing to the other bearing, it's a solid piece. It's a solid piece. So yes, I now understand, and I can assure you the cones will be placed in.
And Michael, do you also agree with Bob saying put everything in first dry and test it?
Yeah,
before
I do exactly the same as Bob. I put a little oil on the bearings before I spin anything. I don't want them dead dry, but other than that, I do exactly the way Bob does. And it does work and it's not that hard to do.
No. Question, fellas. Torque as far as foot pounds, they're talking, let's hear it. They're talking, how many pounds are you putting it to, lads?
Up till it strips and back it off 2 flats.
I know I've done that. Go till it breaks and back it off a quarter.
I think about
Yes.
65, as I remember correctly,
Is that right, eh?
just from memory.
Yeah, because, they're saying anywhere between 45 to 60 pounds. So you're right.
Yeah.
That's good to know.
Mhm.
Well, I think you've answered my questions, gentlemen. Now if we could just
Just one
figure out,
question.
hey, Mike, what's that noise, eh?
So do you have enough shim, Dave, to make sure to
can you
work
hear
that
me?
out? Wait a minute, Alan. What we do?
Okay.
So Dave, do you have plenty of shims?
Oh, actually, there was 2 shims in one wheel and 1 shim in the other. So what I will do is I'll probably start on one side and get it to where I'm quite comfortable with it, and then just order up or get more shims.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep.
They are pretty tiny. I mean, they're only, they're very, well, whatever they are, right? But yes, they are very, and then I'm not even sure, like I have this rather large shim. Here, I'll do this.
Yeah, we can
And
see it.
these 2 much smaller shims. So I don't know which of these 2 was the originals, or was this the original?
The smaller
Or-
ones are the originals.
They are, eh? Okay, so
That's
we
right.
can,
And they're the same as MGB.
the MGB uses the same concept.
Exactly the same structure. Yeah,
And can you reuse the shims, or do you need to always
absolutely. Yeah,
replace them?
absolutely. Yep.
Okay. Okay, that's good to know.
And
This is
BJH
good.
shims are a different size.
The BG8s are different than the earlier
than all
Healy's,
the-
Bob?
The other roadsters, yes.
Okay,
Yeah, because they have to fit, really, they have to fit nicely like there, eh?
on that cone.
Yeah, they have to fit just
Correct.
kind of nicely on that thing right here. Yeah, okay. This is good.
So are
This
you-
is
you
good
put-
to know.
Are you doing other suspension work on the car too as well, Dave?
No, what I got into is I was getting an awful lot of brake squeal, you know, that wonderful when you're stopping and you want the people to look at you, but all they hear is that screeching noise. So I was running around with a can of brake cleaner and I'd get out and squirt it, but about a day later it would start to squeal again. So when I took the everything apart, the rotors and that apart, I found that the pads on this particular one here, there's quite a sharp edge along here on the outside edge. And I mean, it's sharp enough that if you were to really press, you know, you could cut yourself. So in fact, the rotor was not running anywhere to the edge. It was actually running inside this edge. So it was wearing here and leaving this very sharp edge. And that's what I think was squealing, because I find it on the one wheel and not on the other. Now, the other thing I found, which was interesting, is that my rotors have been cut down, because I can feel quite a said rotor. They've been cut down because there's quite a lip here and quite a lip on the other side, on the inside. And I was getting, you know, when you apply your brakes and you get that like a pulsing. So I'm saying these are probably warped. So I said, well, okay, do I cut them down? Do I take them to a shop and have them, you know, whatever. But then I found that the two rotors, this was kind of interesting. What you do in the far north when you're not blowing snow, they're not the same thickness as you can see here, right?
Wow.
One is considerably thicker than the other.
One is
That's not right.
probably the earlier cars, earlier the BJ8s, they had a thinner rotor than the late BJ8s.
They're not interchangeable. The what he's got there, I think, are one that's been machined and one hasn't. The original thickness is 1/2 inch, and you can take them down by as much as 75 thou, I believe, is the maximum cut.
Yeah. So we're going to replace them outright.
Okay, that sounds like a good idea.
And then use them as frisbees with the grandchildren.
Now, those of you who are, Rick posted a YouTube video that's out there on that. So I will, I'll also include that when we post the video on that. But take a look at that. Go into your chat group on Zoom, and you can see that YouTube channel on working on those. So thank you, Rick, for that.
That's John Twist of University Motors. And it
Okay.
really explains the whole process for people like me who are wheel bearing challenged. It's very good. It's on an MGB, but as Michael said, it's the same setup.
Great.
Peter?
Anything else, Dave?
No, that's it, guys. No, that's it.
Hey, just a quick, sorry, I missed the beginning. Which car is this? I can see behind him, but I can't really.
It's a BJ8.
Yeah, 65.
So all these problems that you're talking about, is this a problem that Sprite people have to worry about?
Nope.
All right. Peter?
And this, I might say that this car and several within the New England Club would have to agree with. Pam and I run this thing brutally, not hard. I don't baby it, but I drive it. And we'll put over 10,000 miles every year. We've put on in since we bought it in, I think it was 2016, we've averaged anywhere between 8,000 and 11,000 miles. And the best time was when we trailered it down to Arizona, and we spent the winter down there pre-COVID, driving every back road. We went to the borders 3 times to look at the wall. I mean, I could go on and on and on, but it was just a phenomenal time. So because we lost due to COVID, going back down for the last 2 years, 3 years now.
Yeah.
We drive it like, I would think nothing, if I had the brakes back together, I would think nothing of changing the oil and driving this thing directly to Florida.
That's great. That's what they're meant to do. That's exactly what you want to do, Dave.
Yeah, it's a good car.
Ken, did you have a question? Did I see a hand raised, Ken?
Yeah, I got a question for Mike Salter. You said that you had a crack testing kit. Was that the process of magnafluxing?
No, it was a penetrant kit.
Oh, okay.
They're quite effective. Use a dye, and then you clean it all off, and you spray it with that which is what is actually just chalk, and then you wait for the penetrant to pull out. Quite effective.
Wow.
Because my father and I ran antique midgets and sprint cars, and every 2 years we had to have the front spindles magnafluxed for cracks.
Yeah.
So
I used to be in the aircraft industry, and we found that penetrant systems were actually more reliable than Magnaflux. Because Magnaflux relies on a very skilled operator.
Interesting. Thank you.
Great. Okay. Well, thanks, Dave, for your question. We've also got a question from Rich Mastronati. I'm not sure how many of you have seen Rich's car, but Rich had a gold at Enclave this year in his concourse. So he's got a question regarding, so he has the original bias ply tires. So Rich, you want to give us your question and your thoughts about where you're going now that you're going to be driving the car more?
Yeah, thanks, Pete. Yeah, I've been thinking if I want to drive the car more, I really would like to switch over to radial tires. And I have 60 spoke wheels on there right now, and I'm thinking about changing them to 72. So I've been looking at tires and I've been looking at the wheels, and so I have a number of questions. One is, do people think that's a good idea to switch over to radial tires? And I guess how important is it to go from 60 spokes to 72? I bought the original tires from Longstone out of the UK, and they recommend Michelin XAS as a tire. I didn't want to go to a bigger tire than what was standard, so I'm thinking about the XAS. I'm trying to think of what size they are.
165s, Rich, right?
Yeah, the 165 15s.
Yep.
So I was wondering what people, anybody had some thoughts on this?
So Rich got a BT7, just to let everyone know. It's actually a gorgeous car. And congratulations on your gold concourse, Rich.
Thank you, Pete.
Yep.
I just got my score sheets a week or so ago,
Oh, good.
which was interesting. So
I can
find
tell
out
you
where
that
I
we
lost
were,
points.
can tell you that I was in England in the spring, and we visited Motor Wheel Services, and they had a very good inventory of tires for these cars, and they sold tires. I think they were called Blocker or something or other, Blocker or Blocker. And I did a bit of research on them. They do have a very good reputation, so that may be an alternate source, and I think they're a good deal less expensive than the Michelins.
Yeah. Yeah, they all seem pretty expensive
Yeah.
regardless, but Michelins are at the higher end.
Now, can you source Michelins here in the US or in Canada?
I did.
Okay.
They're about the same price. And with the exchange rate to Great Britain right now, it's a little more attractive there, and they're offering free shipping to the US,
Wow.
which is helpful. And their price of the tubes is slightly lower than the American companies.
What are the tires? How much are the tires?
For which tire? The Michelin?
The XAS.
And are you going with painted wire wheels again, Rich?
I think so. They're 209 pounds
Each.
each. So it's about $234 or something.
Yeah.
Yep.
I
Are you
mean,
going to autocross the car at all?
what's that?
Are you going to autocross the car at all?
I don't think so.
I don't know if it's worthwhile going up to 72 spokes if you're not going to run it that hard. I've got XAS Michelins on my BJ7. I got them from Longstone. I think they're a very reputable company. They ship free to the United States. Their prices, I think, are better than you'll find here in the United States with the free shipping. I did buy tubes from them, and I sent everything down to Alan Hendricks for balancing and shaving them. And Alan didn't feel like the tubes that they supplied were the correct ones for that tire. And now I have 72 spoke wires, but the width is the same. So I'm not sure why Alan sold me some different tubes that he sells. So you might want to look into that, but I find I've got the XASs on the big Healy. I've got them on my Bug Eye. I had them on a bunch of Fiats that I owned in the 70s. I think they're a great tire. They last forever. They've got good grip, very predictable tire. I'd be very happy with them on a Healy.
And that's good to know. You know, when I ran the Healy back in the 70s, I was running Pirelli tires on it. I found that they didn't last all that long.
Now, Bob Abbott, you run tubeless tires, correct?
Correct,
With your wheels? Yep.
yes.
And what brand are you using for tires?
I'm running Vertestein tires.
Yeah.
But Rich, I kind of think that Rick was alluding to the fact that to me anyhow, but by the look of it, I think that 72 spokes just are too damn busy to put on a simple Austin-Healey car. I mean, an XK Jaguar, which is where they were original equipment, might need them, but I just think they just look too busy. It's
Yeah.
a personal thing, but that's
I
just
had
my
a
opinion.
BJ8 a number of years ago with chrome 72 spoke. And they look nice, but everything I've read says obviously the unchromed one, the painted ones are actually stronger. And I kind of like the look of them better than the chrome. Well,
I agree with that. Chrome wheels have more sizzle, if you will.
Yeah.
But the painted were original, and I think they are probably stronger. Just the process is probably better. And the wheels I've been buying are all sealed, so you can run them tubeless. And I've been running tubeless tires on my car for probably eight or 10 years now, a couple different sets of tires, and been very happy with it. I never have to add air. I don't even carry a spare anymore. I just carry a tube of Fix-A-Flat.
Do you?
You get that much more space in the rear end, don't you, in the trunk?
Absolutely, absolutely. Enough room for my wife's shoes, for crying out loud.
This is Kenny Beck. I think the cars originally came with 590 15s. Is that right?
yes, I believe so.
And if you figure out the circumference, the 165 is a smaller circumference tire.
Right.
And I've been using 185/70 15 Vertesteins, which is the same diameter, same circumference as the 590.
Yeah,
It's-
that's what Longstone has sort of recommended also.
Okay, so I'm not totally out the
Ray?
line.
No, I mean, the
Can you
difference,
come here for a minute?
I'm sorry?
Even though it sounds like a modern wide tire, 185/70 is a pretty skinny tire by today's standards.
Right.
We have problems buying skinny tires. Nobody makes them anymore, or very few people.
And that's what I'm running on my BJ8 is 72 spoke 185s, but on my 100, I'm running 60 spoke 165s, and I am running Vertesteins on both of them.
Well,
I've been happy
Rich-
with both.
Rich had mentioned Pirelli tires, and I've got their advertisement from Hemmings here. And they, according to this, that the Pirelli 165 is a substitute for both 560 and 590 15s.
Really?
Yeah.
The diameter of the tire is about the same as the Michelin XAS. One is 25.43 inches and the other one's 25.55 inches. The ones that I have on there now, the bias Dunlap are 25.98. So the difference is about 4/10 of an inch on the diameter. So I
Well,
am a
Rich, if you
little
want-
close on the, to one of my fenders, the beating, and when I turn it all the way, it's pretty close, so I was thinking a little bit smaller tire would be fine.
Well, Rich, if you're interested, you're welcome to come down to my shop, and I've got both my 100 and my VJ8 side by side. You can see the difference on the two tires, the 165s and the 185s.
Okay,
I could go
Just
out,
bought, I just bought the 180s from just a couple months ago from Longstone. They were 180 HR15s that I bought, and
Wow.
I put them, I had them on my 100 and I had them on my and I'm just putting them on my 3000. So that might be a little bit different than the 165s. And
and the 180/15s is, it's actually slightly larger than the original bias Dunlaps.
and that's
It's,
what they recommended, yeah. And also they recommended tubes, even though I bought new wheels and they were tubeless wheels, but Longstone recommended the tubes, so I bought the Michelin tubes to go with the
Yeah.
tires.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. That's what I'm running now, so I'm thinking that.
I could go out in my shop and actually measure an RS4 if you want.
Okay. Yeah, well,
I'd never heard of the 180s, Jerry. That's interesting.
Yeah, it's 180 HR15 Michelin, and I had bought them before, oh, maybe 10 years ago for my 100. And
Yeah.
they're really nice tires. I think they drive and ride really nice. Good grip. I don't do
So-
any fun Kanas or gymkhanas with it, but for driving down the road or going just a typical ride, super riding tire.
So what width rim are you running on that? The 5-inch?
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, I got the wheels from Moss.
Okay.
And
Yeah, so one of the things I discovered is that Longstone, nobody's making the Dunlap RS5s anymore. And so I was also inquiring as to whether or not anybody knew of somebody who's trying to do gold Concours and wants the extra 5-10 points by putting those on there. So,
Well, Rich, we now have got the Healy Marketplace. We've just
Yep.
added to the AHCA website. So you're welcome if you want to mimic. Someone just said, just put out some 100M parts on our Healy Marketplace. So as a member, you can do that for free if you're interested in doing that. Bill
Okay.
Walton's managing that for us.
I was trying to decide whether or not I want to sell them as, mounted on the 60-spoke rims or just sell the tires and keep the rims, because the rims are not cheap either. And the ones I have are Dunlaps.
Yeah.
I bought them 10 years ago. So one of the questions I had too is that I think I bought them from AH Spares. And their wheels are less expensive than Moss by quite a bit, but they're not. Moss has this
MWS.
MWS,
Your dinner.
Dunlap lookalikes.
Are you sleeping?
I was wondering if
If
anybody
you're not
has
speaking, you
experience
wouldn't mind
with
putting
that.
your phone on mute, please. Someone else was coming in. Thank you.
Well,
Go
they
ahead.
see you
Sorry,
sleeping
Rich.
online. Would you like some dinner?
Yeah.
I'll bring it to you in a bowl.
So Mike, put your computer on mute if you're not speaking, please, Mike. Thank you.
So I guess I was questioning, what's with the MWS Dunlap lookalikes? Are they quality rim?
MWS bought the Dunlop name. The Dunlops years ago were made in, what the heck was it?
India.
Yeah, right, India, and they were garbage, right?
Yeah.
That's
You
what I
saw the
read, yes.
Dunlop, you saw the Dunlop sticker on there, you tried to stay away from them. MWS bought them, and they make a fine wheel now, better than the Dayton as far as I'm concerned.
think they're still made in India.
I don't think so.
No, I was there in the spring, and they alluded to the fact that they were still made in India.
Okay, well, I think they're listed as a different country. They're not in England. You may be right, but
Motor Wheel Services, I was very impressed with, though, really was. They knew what they were talking about. They had an enormous inventory of wheels, and they seem to now have a very good reputation.
yeah,
MWS?
MWS, yeah.
Yeah.
And they import and build most of the wheels that are sold by the various retailers.
Yeah, I'm trying to find out from AH Spares who the manufacturer is, whether it is MWS. Does anybody know?
Just about guarantee they are.
Okay, also, I guess the other company, Cape International also sells them.
He just buys them from MWS.
He does.
And a head for Heelys may also too in the UK.
I'm sorry, what?
A head for Heelys, and that's
Yeah.
is a partner with Bob Ewell at Auto Farm.
Okay.
So then
Yeah,
you
he
also
says-
you need to go through. You're going to need those all get them mounted, that sort of thing too, Rich.
Yeah.
You know,
Well,
that is
the
one
wheel I
thing
have,
with Alan
I've only-
Hendricks is you get one-stop shopping with Alan if you choose to go that direction.
Yeah. Well, again, I'm questioning whether or not I even want to buy new rims, because the ones I have only have 200 miles on them. So. and they seem
Well,
to be,
your tires may have less value possibly than without the rims on them, but
maybe true.
that's just, net's probably cheaper buying just the tires and the tubes if you're going to go tubeless with the existing wheels you have.
Yeah.
That'll be the cheapest thing to do.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting trying to find what the price would be if I bought new Dunlap bias tires. And I only found one for sale on the internet, which was $300 a piece. So,
But if you're going to drive the car, you're going to want to use a radial tire, Rich. You don't want to go bias again, do you?
no.
Right.
So, but I was just trying to see if somebody wanted to buy them, how much I should sell them for.
Well, again, they're 10-year-old tires.
Right.
So who wants them is going to use them for concours, not driving.
Right.
Yep. Well, like I said, you're welcome to put them on the Heeley Marketplace.
Okay.
I have a question for Bob Abbott. You're running tubeless tires on your wheels. I was of the understanding that wheels made for tubeless tires have what's called a safety bead. They have a raised rim on the rim just inboard of where the tire beading sits. Do these wheels that you're using, do they have that safety bead?
I'm running MWS wheels and I use them all the time and I've never had a problem. Now I'm not driving the car in.
You know if they have the safety bead?
or-
Do you know if they have the safety bead? I mean, maybe they build them with it in, I don't know.
I do not know. It's a standard MWS wheel that I buy through Enon.
Okay.
I think all the wheels made,
yeah.
all the wheels made today have that safety bead. The older wheels made for tubes, you're correct. There's no lip over there to lock the tire onto that wheel. And if you're racing or something, you get a lot of side load, you could pop that off.
Is that what you're going to say, Bob Ewell?
MWS
Go ahead, Bob. Sorry.
MWS wheel. The MWS wheels that are sold as tubeless all come with that ridge around them.
Okay. Anything else, Rich?
No, it's it, Pete. Thank you. Thank you,
Great.
everybody.
Yeah. Thanks all for your comments. Carl Carvel, were you able to join us?
Yes, I am. Can you hear me?
We can hear you fine.
I can't see you. Oh, I
Oh,
can see you, but I can't see my pretty face up on the row above your head.
okay. Well, maybe your camera's not on, but that's all right. But
Well,
you can
that
ask
could
your
be.
question anyways, Carl.
I have a very simple question. Well, you want to repeat it or you want me to describe it?
No, go for it.
Okay, directional signals. They used to work fine. And all of a sudden, they don't shut off. You turn them on, they go left, you turn it to the right, it goes off with the lever. But they won't go off automatically. So I thought this must be an easy problem to fix. I'll just take this cover off and find out what the problem is. How do you get the cover off your wheel? The one that contains the directional signal lever.
The
Easiest thing is
trafficator,
get
Carl.
a big tire iron and wedge it between the steering wheel and the cover.
Well, I used to use that method, but I broke too many things.
Yeah. No,
Okay, so
it's a very fragile piece. Be very, very careful.
okay. So use a smaller tire iron.
Yes, right. There are 3 little screws around the hub of the wheel. If you look carefully, 3 little slot-headed grub screws. If you undo those grub screws, this is adjustable steering or non-adjustable?
Adjustable.
Yeah, undo those 3 little grub screws about 3 or 4 turns each, and then you'll find you can just lift it out.
Okay, thank you.
But Carl, that's the easy part. Now you've got to get that thing apart to clean it up.
That's
And
what I'm
that's where
trying
it
to get at.
becomes-
Get it off. He said, pry it off.
Well, no, he said, take off those 3 small screws, those grub
No, it
screws.
didn't. I thought those were under the cover.
No,
There
No,
are
they're on the
3 different
outside.
screws under the cover.
The
I'm
3
sorry, the
little
what?
screws are in the hub of the steering wheel. So
Yes.
below the cover, and they go inwards from the sides of the steering wheel. They go in at right angles to the
Oh.
steering shaft.
Okay,
3 little grub screws. Take those out.
gotcha.
But Carl, is your question more basic than that? You're talking about how to get the front cover off
Yes,
to get to those grub screws?
Now, you don't have to remove anything to get to the grub screws. The grub screws are in the hub of the steering wheel.
I need to get into the hub.
No, you just look at the side of the hub of the steering wheel. Don't
Yeah.
On the
take
outside.
anything off.
On
Okay, and
the
there are
outside.
3 little screws.
Below the spokes of the steering wheel, down
Correct.
toward the dash. There's 3 little screws in there, and a small screwdriver will undo them. And then the whole thing
Okay.
will pull out.
On
And I
the
think
front,
whether the whether your directional signals are automatic or not may have to do with how the apparatus under there is lined up.
that's what
If you
I'm
get it-
trying to track
If you get
down.
it
yeah.
wrong, they won't work. It won't work.
Very good.
You have to look at it and you have to study it and make sure you have a 1 spoke up or 2 spokes in a Y configuration.
1 spoke up.
Okay, now have you changed that recently, or is this something it worked fine for a long time and then didn't work?
It has been off. The whole steering
Okay.
column was off and put back on.
Okay, then I think you've got a question of lining it all up properly. You have to look at it and study it and see how it works. And once you understand it, you can either do a Y configuration or you can do a single spoke up configuration. But you have to get it working so that when you turn it, it goes by a certain, I've forgotten now, it's been months since I've done it, but you have to go a certain distance and then it catches and will bring it back when you turn the wheel to the center. But you have to look at it and understand it. That whole thing under there has to be lined up the right way, either in a Y configuration or otherwise. If anybody can correct me who's had more experience with it. I only did it once, and once you look at it and study it, you'll figure out how it works.
Yeah, well, that's what I assume because, it's, 2 + 2 is usually 4. So once I see what I'm doing, then I'll be able to
Yeah, I
Do
doubt
the
it.
adjustment on the alignment of the mechanism.
I doubt anything's wrong with your mechanism. It's a question of lining everything up under there so that it's working properly.
Yep. No, it has worked fine all along, and then it just one day I noticed it was blinking, and also the lever, the directional signal lever has shifted a little bit to the one side. So that's what gave me the clue that there's something misaligned underneath.
Okay.
And that's the trafficator, Carl.
Yes, and also when if you make going very slowly, like in your driveway, if you turn it all the way so that it locks over to the left or right, when you bring it back, does it work?
I haven't tried that.
Try that, because that'll tell you that everything wants to work. It's just not lined up right.
Okay, very good.
Now, Carl, did you put a new steering box in that car?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
And after that was installed, it did work fine for many months. It was just several months after that it slipped its cog.
Okay. I remember you were putting a new steering box in that.
Well,
Okay.
yeah, I mean, it was fine for the 50 years before that, but so.
Do you have trouble getting it's very annoying, at least to me, to drive down the road and have the steering wheel a little cockeyed. I just don't like that on any car. And on a BJ8, if you're very careful, you can get it. There's no adjustment down underneath the car at the tie rod ends to make that right. You have to take the wheel off and go over a little spline of just a little bit, and you have to try it. You almost have to leave everything loose so that you got those 3 screws that Michael was talking about, so that you can take it off and look at it and change it again, or pull the wheel off and move it. You can get it so that it's, especially with a spoke up, it's very annoying to have it.
Yes, that's the way I like it. Yeah. No, that's pretty good. The alignment is pretty good on the steering.
I can caution you that each spline, each spline is 6 degrees.
If that.
Okay.
Now I got to get out a compass to find out what 6 degrees is. That's from north or south. Okay, thanks, guys.
Thanks, Carl.
may
Any other
I ask,
questions that folks have? Go ahead,
please.
Mike.
Hi there. My name is Mike Hirsch. I just bought a BJ8 from a friend of mine's estate. It's in very nice shape. But that question about the self-centering trafficator was very appropriate, because mine sometimes centers and sometimes not. Because it's disconcerting to drive along and find myself still signaling 5 miles after the turn. But again, sometimes yes, sometimes no. Will taking it apart and cleaning the mechanism possibly help that? Because it seems to be okay, but marginal, but occasional. So would that help?
And Bob, is that what you were insinuating
Yes,
when you're talking to Carl?
yes. If it's never been apart, they can be full of gunk that stops the little dogs, the canceling dogs from retracting and popping it back to center position. So oftentimes, if you take it apart, you can see the wear, or you can see the crud that's built up in there, and clean it off. But it is kind of fiddly to get it apart and get it back together. There are a number of little parts in there that can go sprawling when you first try to take it apart, and they get all over the shop.
Okay, thanks a lot.
So
Thanks for the heads up on that one.
So if I go behind the steering wheel itself, there's 3 grub screws that will release the cap, so I can take the front off, at least inspect it.
Your
That'll allow
BJ8,
you to pull the whole switch assembly out.
the whole switch will come out along with the stub of the stator tube.
Okay, that's because I know at the center of the steering wheel there's like a cup like this, where when the horn button's in the center. So
Yeah.
with 3 grub screws on the side, will that now enable me to take that cover off with the horn button and have access to the guts?
That'll be the start to get to the guts, yes.
It's more than the horn button. It's the whole horn assembly that comes out.
Oh, boy. Okay.
The turn
Once
signal
you get it
assembly.
out, you can see it. Once you get it out, you can see it. But then there's also the question, to get it all the way out, you have to go down in and disconnect the wires and all that stuff.
Right.
And
So Mike, you only want to pull it up about 6 or 8 inches. Don't,
Right.
you're not going to pull it out.
So just to really just enough to decrud it essentially and put a little bit of light oil on it.
Yes.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Had the car been sitting, Mike, before you bought it?
It had been used quite a bit, but it hadn't been driven probably in about at least 5 years. I managed to get it started, finally registered and licensed. I imported from Canada, and finally got all the paperwork done and put several hundred miles on it. And
Great.
first 10, 15 minutes of having sitting running in the garage, it emitted a lot of smoke, shall we say. But now it's running well. It's on a second tank of fresh fuel, and I'm learning the clutch ratio. I have a Spitfire also, and I like all things British. What can I say? So I have the Spitfire. Also, I have a 39 de Havilland Tiger Moth. Oh,
Wow.
shoot me now. So I'm learning this stuff. So this is my first time at one of these meetings. So thank you.
And Mike, what model Healy did you get?
It's a 67 BJ8, I believe it is.
Okay.
I'm
Well,
not
I'm
sure if you
still
can
on.
see what I'm holding up, but this is the switch that you're pulling out. And
Okay.
this plate here, the grub screws just go onto the top of that plate. And when you unscrew the grub screws, the whole thing comes out. You see that?
Okay.
As simple as that. It's just on that plate.
And what you're holding in your hand there is actually the lever.
That's the whole switch assembly. There's the lever.
Oh, very good.
The whole thing
Okay,
comes out like that.
Okay, and that rod that you're holding goes down through.
That's
through
right.
the-
This actually telescopes on another rod that goes to the front of the steering box.
Got it. Okay. Okay.
And that's what's called the stator tube that Bob Abbott mentioned.
Okay.
So again,
Good.
Mike, you
Thank
don't
you.
want to pull it all the way out. You just want to
Right.
get it up out of that housing and clean that up there.
Just enough to spray with, let's say, even brake
Yeah,
cleaner.
carburetor cleaner or brake cleaner. Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, because what Mike Salter was showing you there is you could see the wire that goes through there. That goes all the way down the stator tube down to the front of the steering box.
So all you want to do is pull it out enough to have access, put a bunch of rags under it, clean it out, put it back together with minimal interference.
Yeah, and do you happen? You have air? You have a compressor? You can maybe?
I do.
Okay, be able to blow it out too.
Yes, thank you. Good. Thanks very
You're
much.
welcome. Okay, great. Other questions this evening? Rob Moore, I see you're on there. What's going on with getting your car back on the road?
Well, on the last call, Bob Abbott suggested I give Rob Madinsky a call about some wires and whatnot in my ignition. So I did talk to him. He sent me some stuff. So next time I'm up in Vermont, I'm gonna once more valiantly attempt to get my car at least running.
Now, is the space where you have in Vermont, is it heated?
Yes, it's in my parents' basement. So
great.
But you can't just run down there, obviously, after dinner to put 20 minutes of work in.
Peter, I have a question.
Go ahead, Ken.
Last month, I had asked about some advice on putting in a wiring harness in my 100. And after reading the last Healy Mark, the question came up, maybe should I put more fuses in it? And I do have a brand new wiring harness from the place in Pennsylvania. And I'm just wondering, instead
Bridge
of,
wiring?
yes, instead of having a whole new fuse block, I was wondering what Mike and Bob's feeling would be about putting an inline fuse on certain circuits.
On my car, I can tell you that I have installed a 50 amp fuse on one of the brown wires that comes out of the regulator. I can't remember which one. It's 150 amp fuse, because it's been my experience that if you have a short circuit, it's going to blow a 50 amp fuse every time. And it's short circuits that you're worried about. A short circuit and even in a side light will pop a 50 amp fuse. It will mean that everything dies, no lights or anything, but that's how I have done it. It's just like a last resort. You know, if something's gone wrong, it'll pop that fuse. You'll have to coast to the side of the road, but at least you won't burn the harness out.
So is it, you've just done it to one of those, Michael, or you've done more than that?
Yeah, I'd have to look on the wiring diagram, but one of those brown wires essentially supplies everything to the car.
Yep.
And I just got a little, you know, one of those spade fuses in a little spade fuse holder. It's been in there for years. I've never blown it yet, but that's why it's there, in case there's a short circuit.
Okay.
Great.
And then the last thing I have is, yes, I'll I'll put it on our website, but if anybody is interested in a 1950 Sunbeam Talbot 90 convertible, I got one for sale.
Okay. Is this yours or someone that you acquired it from?
It's a relative of a relative's. I dragged it home from East Longmeadow, Massachusetts about 4 weeks ago. I got it running.
Okay.
I've driven it up and down my road. It does need, you know, master cylinder and wheel cylinders, and that's all it needs to be roadworthy. Nice body on it. It was restored in the mid-90s.
I can tell you that the distributor out of it fits 100S.
I know nothing.
Ken, what year was it?
1950. They were made from 50 to 54.
Sunbeam Talbot, huh?
Sunbeam Talbot 90 convertible. They made 4 doors and they made a roadster version of this.
And which version do you have?
The convertible with roll-up windows.
But it's so 2 or 4 doors?
2.
Okay. So
yep.
Great.
So.
Okay. Other thoughts or questions? So Rick Neville did post in the chat again. Thank you very much, Rick, for that. But it's a YouTube video on repairing trafficators. So Mike and Carl,
how to take them apart and put them back together, chase the springs that go flying out from under the workbench. You gotta be really careful when you take that thing apart, because as Bob has said, stuff goes flying out of there and you're not gonna find it again. There's 3 little springs there that just, they've got a mind of their own.
It's kind of like working on a big watch.
It's designed by a fellow named Shrapnel, probably.
Very similar.
Pete, one question.
Go ahead. Hold on.
Does anybody know of who around New England is capable and able to rebuild differentials these days? There was a guy in Connecticut, a guy named John, I forgot his last name, and I forgot the name.
Esposito?
Esposito. And he, last I heard, he was not answering phone calls. He's been way backed up on work and essentially not functioning, but I don't know the latest. But
So you're looking to rebuild a differential? Is that what it is, Alden?
Yeah, I have one that I want to reduce from 3.91 to 3.54, and I have all the parts to do it, and all I want is somebody that'll do it, that knows how to do it. And it's a long story that I won't go into now, but I have the parts and everything to do with. I just want to convert it to the different
Yep.
ratio. But who around New England is doing this and will do it and get it done and so forth,
Well,
and do it right?
So Alden, we had a club member, Paul Donnell. He's now recently, he was out in Western Mass. He's relocated to Sedona, but he was doing that. He was using a machine shop in Great Barrington. But Ken Beck or Bob Abbott, is that something that that your shops do?
No, I just got a pumpkin back from Quantum Mechanics down in Connecticut. If you get lucky, you get through to him and he will take them. It takes a while though.
Yeah, next summer, 2 o'clock.
How about you, Kenny? Are you doing that?
Yeah, we do that.
What's that?
We rebuild the differentials. Yes, okay.
And who am I looking at? I just don't see.
That's Ken Beck, K&T Vintage Cars in Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. He does great work.
And I'm sorry, give me that name again.
Go ahead, Ken.
K&T Vintage Sports Cars.
KMT?
K and
is in November?
No, the and sign
Ampersand.
plus.
I'm sorry. Say
Like
again.
Ken and Tom. It's an ampersand.
Oh, a K and what?
T.
K and T, okay. And
Vintage sports cars.
vintage?
Sports
Sports
cars.
cars.
Are you on a website?
Yes.
Okay, what website would I find that on? What's
It's
Oh, then I'll send it to you.
Oh, that would be great.
Yep. I'll
Alden
send Kenny's
Bryan at-
details to us.
Alden Bryan at Comcast.net, if you would,
Yep.
that would be great.
Not a problem. And Ken's an active sponsor for events that we have at Enclave and others. So we really appreciate all the work that Ken and his team does.
Okay, so I've sent the part, send it all down and you can convert it?
Yes.
Here it
is. Alden, this is Bob Britton speaking. A little place closer that you may want to try. There's a place in Keene called Keene Driveline. And
That Keene, New Hampshire?
Keene, New Hampshire, yes. And
Drive line?
it's called Keene Driveline. And they put my 3.5 gears in my differential about 6 or 7 years ago and put a couple, they determined when they got I took the unit to them and they also got a couple bearings that they said were worn. So
Because I'm in northern Vermont, so I'd like someplace I can drive it to.
yeah, they did it, and they used to do the work for David Clark at Sports Car Services. That's who referred me to them.
So Keene Drive Line, Line, Keene, New Hampshire?
Yep. I don't know if they're still in business, but
Well, that's one of the problems you get.
yeah, you have to check with them, but and they do differentials and drive shafts and that type of stuff. So you may want to Google them and see if they're still around.
Okay, thank you very much.
Yep.
Anything else?
But Alden, it's well worth it. You'll love it with a 3.5 diff.
Yeah, well, actually, I have a 3.54 in the car now, but it's screaming at me. And it came from, oh, come on, the guy's name of,
H Spares.
no, not AH Spares, the other folks, the
A
racer.
head for Healy's.
I'm sorry? Welch.
Head
Welch.
for Healy's.
Dennis Welch.
Oh, Dennis
And
Welch. Okay, yeah.
They sent me one, they redid it, I bought it, all set, ready to go, put it in and it screams.
Wow.
I just am sick of it.
Okay.
Well, and I don't know what, in fact, it's twice. I sent it over, I had them send me one, it screamed. I had sent it back, they sent me another one, it screamed.
Ooh.
It screams,
Okay.
it just, and I know it's that, I can put it up on a lift and put, with a stethoscope and you can listen to it.
Really?
Touch
Okay.
the brakes a little bit so that it's under load. And it screams. And I've taken the original one I had that I kept fortunately, and I've got the parts from Spares, and I now want to have it done by somebody competent to do it.
Turn up the radio.
With that, turn up the radio. That I don't believe in driving with a radio. I'm sorry, I don't like the scream. It isn't so bad in the summer with the top down.
Okay, well, you got a couple different options there. Alden.
Okay,
And
that's
I'll send you
good.
Kenny's details.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
So
Other
Alden,
questions
do
tonight?
you, Alden, do you have a new 3.5
Well, I have a new
that you want to put in?
3.5 queen gear, or whatever they call them, a king gear, but queen, it's, and, and then
Yeah, the pinion
that.
and the,
Yeah.
so you have a whole new,
I have the new stuff to put
Okay.
in my differential, my pumpkin.
So do you have a spare pumpkin?
I have the one that came with the car, which was fine, except it was a 3.91.
Okay, yep.
And all I want to do is convert it, but I want somebody competent to convert it. It has to be very carefully done with the, the grease that shows
The
you. when it's
backlash,
on or off
yep.
and all that kind of stuff.
I
It's a
should
nice
also
car.
mention that the problem can actually be the gears themselves not being cut correctly. I had a 366 set supplied by Welsh, and that was noisy from the day we put it in. Never, ever was quiet. All right in a race car, but no good for a road car.
Yeah.
Obviously,
Okay.
Dennis' business is really built around his high performance motorsports. So
Whose car is up there now? I see a nice green Healy there.
Yeah,
67 or low.
That's
that's
Mike's.
mine, Mike Hirsch. Yeah, that's one I just got.
Is that
Great.
a 60? Is that a 67?
It is, yes.
Yeah, like just.
Mike, where do you live?
In Cambridge, Mass.
Okay, great.
Yeah, I just got it this summer, and I've got I live in Cambridge near Harvard with a 2-car garage in the city of Cambridge. It's unheard of.
Good for you.
One side is a Spitfire, the other's got the Healy, and it's an animal.
Nice.
Which street do you live on? How near Harvard Square, east or west?
I'm very close to Alewife T Station.
You what?
I'm between Porter Square and Alewife T Station.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
Great. So other questions this evening?
Yeah, Peter.
Please.
Hi,
Jerry.
Well, as we know, Jerry Payton, I have VJ8 65. I've been trying to resurrect. And I have a question for the group. I hope someone can give me some advice here. Replace master cylinder, put a booster in it, replace front calipers, and despite the fact that I've bled this thing 3 dozen times, I still got a 2-pump pedal to get something decent to break on these things. It's not my first rodeo. I've been around Porsches for 12 years, Ferraris for 4 before that. This car is driving me crazy. I was hoping maybe someone can give me some advice.
So which way did you do? The traditional old fashioned way of pumping and bleeding the brakes, Jerry, or?
I did. Yep.
Okay.
And I bench bled the booster as well as the master before I put them in. So I'm pretty confident there's no air in that system. And I'm just questioning basically the long line that runs over to the left front caliper. It's got a lot of twists, and someone tried to rebuild this car or restore this car. I'm not sure that the routing is correct on that one line. I'm kind of suspect that, but I thought I'd throw that out and see if anybody had any ideas.
But you don't think you've got any air left in the system?
So what is happening?
I'm sorry.
Can you repeat what is
He
happening?
said he has to pump his brakes twice, Rich, to get a
Yeah.
pedal.
Yeah. To get a solid pedal. I've always had a pedal, but in order to get a solid pedal, you got to pump it twice, at least, to get a good hard pedal. And compared to the 911s that I've restored, they've never had this kind of a problem. Oh, I'm kind of almost embarrassed about it. But again, hoping that maybe one of the experts could shed some light on what I'm doing wrong.
Often easiest to isolate which wheels or which wheel or wheel causing the problem. So you use a pair of vice grips and very gently clamp off all three of the flexible brake hoses. Don't overdo it, just enough to
Right.
blank them off. When those are blanked off, the pedal should be like a rock. If it's not like a rock, then the fault is in either the servo
Yeah.
or the master cylinder. And if it is like a rock, then you hold the pedal and release the vice grips one at a time, and you'll be able to isolate which wheel the problem is in.
Yeah, good advice. Thank you. Yeah, I have tried that. And more chagrin.
What was the
let me give that
conclusion when you
another
tried
try.
it? What was the conclusion when you tried it?
Well, I got a rock hard pedal.
Yeah,
but I
right.
did
So it's in
not go
it's in a
around to
wheel.
each-
It's in a wheel or a caliper or a wheel cylinder or something like that.
Yeah, that's good advice. Thank you, Michael. I appreciate that. Mhm.
Okay, great. Well, let us know next month what you find out with that, Jerry.
I will indeed.
Great. Other questions for this evening?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Michael.
I'm looking for a particular key number for a BN2. And I know there was somebody out there that used to sell original Union keys. Does anybody know who it is?
It was
Pete
Peter
Groh?
Groh. Peter Groh.
Peter?
Groh. Groh.
Ah, thank you very much. Thanks very much.
So Ken, is he still doing that?
I don't know. I've been trying to get a hold of him for about the past week. In fact, I called him a little bit ago and left a message. Sounded like he was going to retire. I think he worked for the government, federal government.
Well,
And
then
he
he's
did this.
retired.
Yeah. So I don't know, but he had everything at one time, but I haven't been able to get a hold of him the past week and a half. If you look up his website, it's called British Car Keys.
Great. Thanks, Ken.
Thanks.
No, thank you. Okay. Anyone else before we close?
Yeah, Pete, I have a question.
Go ahead.
Yeah, this is Dave Brew. I wanted to ask Dave, the guy who was doing the wheels earlier, what kind of lift he has?
So was it?
Yes, it's a
two post.
Yeah, it's a two post. And it is I think it's made by Forward.
What's about 7,000 pound capacity on that, Dave?
Well, I think it's greater than that, but I
Is
don't
it?
know.
Okay.
Does that show up there, lads?
Model L? No, I couldn't read it, Dave.
Yeah, it says model DP 10AN 200 BBL. Lift capacity 10,000.
Wow.
It was bought, actually, it wasn't all that bad. It was about 10 G's installed by Current Systems, but that's out of Kempville, a little place, out in the country where I am. I can't say enough about it, but I believe, see the name at the top up there, Forward Lift? That's
Okay,
that's the manufacturer, Forward Lift.
So Dave, how high are your ceilings?
I'm sitting on, we got 10 feet normally here in the garage, and then we placed an inset, you might say, there's the inset. And that's where the hoist goes in, and that's over, I think that's 12 feet.
Nice.
Yeah, right there.
Dave Berube, how high are your ceilings?
12.
Oh, good for you. Okay. Yeah,
I just had a barn built.
good for you. Now, are you looking for a two post or a four post?
A two post.
Okay.
My next question, Dave, does it get low enough for you? Do you have to do anything to get the mounts underneath the car? He's
Dave,
muted.
you're on mute. Dave Jameson.
Unmute, there we go. No, what I did was like this right here, as you can see here. Now on the front ones, whoop, there. You can see here, I'm putting the pad right on the one stick, we'll call it.
Yep.
But on the back ones, what I have to do to clear the apron of that is, you see, I got to put in that's about 1.5 inch spacer. Now, the problem that you run into is, geez, where's Pam when you need her? The problem you run into is when you get into this, hang on, right there. See, the exhaust system won't allow this leg here. This leg here, you can't go underneath because here's the exhaust system. So what I do is I run, I think that's about about a 3 inch, and I place it right on the frame part right here. I don't know if that's going to show up very well, guys.
No, you can see it.
Yep.
Yeah. And it keeps it, what I'm trying to do, like here, I've got maybe 1 inch of gap between we'll call it the leg and the bottom of the car. And on this side, I've got the exact same amount, about 1 inch of gap there. And what this does is it keeps the car relatively level.
Looks good, Dave.
Yeah, it really, I mean, at words, I can't say enough how much I use it. Because we also own a 28 Ford. And if this isn't on the hoist, then the Ford is. It's also really handy. It's really handy to clean the lawnmower. You just strap it, pull her up, and scrape it, and yeah, it's and you no longer get a grease job when you go for an oil and a filter with the Toyota. So I put the Tundra on it, or Pam's 4Runner, and jack it up and grease away. And oh yeah, for an old guy, it's the greatest thing going.
You put your creeper to rest, did you? Don't have a
Say that?
creeper anymore?
Oh, yard sailed it.
I have
What is it?
exactly the same hoist, and it is exactly what you say. It's a fantastic hoist.
It's an incredible, it's gentle going up. It's easy, slow, eh? Mike, you can lower it down so slow. You know, next to sex, it's the best thing I've had in 20 years. But it is good. I mean, it really is good. What it means is that I can take the car, I can run down to New England, I can run to wherever, come home, put it on the hoist, jack it up, go over everything, you know, just poke and prod and bang my head a couple of times because I'm only 5'9", but this only goes up. The legs don't go beyond 5'9", I can tell you. And you know, it's just nice that you can do the things you want to do.
So the model was a DP10A.
Hang on. I'll go take a picture of it. Give me a second.
So Dave Marubi, the lift that I have, I've got a 4-post lift, and I've also got a scissor lift. So I don't have the 2-post. And again, so I don't have to drill anything into my concrete floors. But you know, those 2-posts are nice. I used to take a class at a vocational school, and they all had 2-posts, and they are nice to work with.
Yeah, that help?
Yep.
Can you see that, Dave Barubi?
What's the make again?
Mine is under a thing called Forward. F-O-R-W-A-R-D.
Forward lift.
Forward. And it is a certified automotive lift, like it's the same one you'd see at a car dealership. And when we built the house and the garage, The garage is 1,200 squares and it's in floor heated. We just marked exactly where the hoist was going to go, and we just made sure that none of the heating was going anywhere near it. And then when we poured the concrete, I had moved a lot of the aggregate out from the steelwork, and there's probably overkill, but I'll bet you there's 12 inches of concrete holding
Wow.
it in place.
So Rich, there's a place in North Attleboro called TEC, and they sell lifts. That's where I got my lift,
Uh-huh.
and they're in North Attleboro. They're both 2-post and 4-post.
So the 2-post, I'm assuming you have to anchor them into your concrete for sure.
Absolutely.
What's the name of the place in North Attleboro?
Called TEC.
TEC?
T is in Tom, E is in Eric, C is in Charlie.
Okay.
Yeah, Pete, I got my lift there as well, and it's been great.
Yep.
4-post.
Yep. And the thing with the 4-post, I don't have to anchor it into the concrete. And remember, I moved it from one garage to the other garage when I built my new workshop.
One thing you got to be careful with the 2 posts is having thick enough concrete.
Yep.
You know, and absolutely minimum is 4 inches, and they prefer 6 inches. So, and as Dave has, he has 12 inches. So I'm sure he's well grounded there.
In my other garage that we just put in this summer, I would probably, because there's lots of concrete and lots of steel and everything else in that one as well, but there's no in-floor heat. But if I was going to put a hoist over there, definitely I would go with a 4-poister, a 4, just to be able to put a car and get it up out of sight and put something underneath it. But this suits this purpose really well.
Yeah, I was going to ask about that. Do people use it to store cars, stack cars?
Yeah, I do. I double stack.
Yeah.
With a 4-post.
Yeah, I have a car on top of mine too.
And I have a 4-post lift, and it's nice to be able to stack cars. And also, as Peter noted, I've moved my lift from one bay to another. And that's nice with the 4 posts is even if you wanted to move it a foot either direction, because you got something else going on, they're very easy to move. Whereas once you put a 2-post in, it isn't moving.
Hopefully.
Yeah. There is a disadvantage to the 4 posts, and especially when you're trying to work up under where the tires are, because you're limited with space. You know, the under the car isn't as open and available to you as on a 2-post. So there is some shortcomings to it, but overall I'm pleased with my 4-post list.
Great. Thanks everyone for sharing that.
Yep. Thank you, guys.
Okay. Anything else before we close? Okay. Well, thank you all tonight. Hopefully you've gotten your notice as it relates to renewals for AHCA. And I know Linda's got over 150 renewals already so far in the first couple of weeks. So thank you, those of you who have already renewed, but look forward to that so we can continue working on these sorts of technical conferences and calls. If those of you who maybe if you sat in on Rick's session last Tuesday night on auctions with Andy Reid and John Sacamino, great event. If you can, it's out on our website in the members only section. Again, our password is Healey, all lowercase. You can listen to that, and that's where we record all these and have those out there for history there. So our next call will be on the 9th of January. So we always do this the second Monday of the month, and have a lot of good, interesting dialogue and questions for that. So thank you all. Happy holidays. Have a great New Year's, and we'll see you guys on the 9th.
Take care, guys.
Peter.
Thank you all. Good night.
Good night.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
Peter. Good meeting. Thanks
You
very
bet.
much, guys.
Thanks, Ted. Bye-bye.
Thank you.